once we decide that this is a business entity, our next question that we have to ask is, what type of an entity is it? There are three choices available when it comes to US international tax law: a corporation, a partnership, or a disregarded entity.
What was the last one?
Disregarded entity. The equivalent here of a disregarded entity would be precisely this. In the United States, the LLC, an LLC, a single-member LLC, would be considered a disregarded entity. It doesn't exist for tax purposes. There's only a taxpayer, there is nothing else. For legal purposes, there is an LLC, but for tax purposes, there isn't. To be honest with you, it's really hard to find a disregarded entity outside of the United States for US tax purposes, unless someone makes a specific election to do so. We'll talk about the election in a second. But what I want to do is I want to give you sort of two examples from France. And I'd like you to tell me if you think this is a partnership, a corporation, or a disregarded entity. Let's talk about Société Civile. So Société Civile is a non-commercial partnership. I took the definitions of the website. So let's see, but it's interesting for our purposes here. Commonly formed by members of the professions libérales, so farmers or those engaged in so-called intellectual activities, including writers, researchers, and any type of consultant. A civil société civile can elect to pay corporate tax or not. So it may pay or it may not pay. If not, each shareholder will include the portion of the entity's profits or losses on his personal tax return. Is this a partnership, a corporation, or impossible to tell at this point, based on what I said? Anyone wants to guess?
Impossible to tell based on what you said.
Why? Why do you think so? Except that if I added the third choice, that might be the correct one. All right, let's you know what? Let's hold this up. Let's talk about the second one. This is Société à responsabilité limitée, a SARL, which is a very, very common entity. It's also very common for U.S. Taxpayers who come to France. When they want to form some sort of a business, they usually open up a SARL. So a SARL must have between 2 to 50 shareholders and a managing director, gérant, who is usually paid a salary. A SARL can elect, under circumstances, to pay corporate tax rather than having its income included on the gérant's personal income tax declaration. Corporation, partnership, impossible to tell. Corporation? Why do you think so?
The formal governance and registration of the SARL, as I understand it,
Mm-hmm.
is a formal registered entity under French law, the corporation.
Okay. Okay. Now, but remember that we're dealing with U.S. international tax law. So just because an entity is classified as a corporation under local law does not in any way mean that it would be a corporation under U.S. law. Just if, that's an important point to remember. The answer actually to both I didn't give you is impossible to tell, because I didn't give you the most important piece of information, and actually the only one that really matters: limited liability. I didn't say in either case whether the owners, the members of each entity had limited liability. This is the only test that matters. If all members of a foreign entity have limited liability, it is a corporation. If at least one of them does not, it's a partnership. As long as there are more than two members of the in the company. If it's one member and there's no limited liability, it is basically a disregarded entity. So it all hinges on the issue of limited liability.